I still remember that Christmas Eve as if it were etched into my soul. South Dakota was a frozen wasteland, the kind of cold that bites through every layer of clothing and steals the warmth from your bones. The wind howled like a living thing, tearing across the streets, rattling the windows of the towering 22-story Fowler Construction headquarters, where I sat at the head of the long conference table. My name is Jonas, 37 years old, CEO of one of the largest construction firms in the Midwest. A black suit hugged my frame, tie perfectly knotted, pen poised over the final papers of a year-end deal worth a staggering $100 million. Today was supposed to mark the pinnacle of my career, a day of triumph and recognition. The room was suffocating with tension. Partners from Chicago, slick and sharp in their suits, leaned forward with expectation in their eyes. Lawyers from both sides hovered like sharks, ready to pounce on the slightest misstep. I was delivering my final line, the culmination of months of negotiation, rehearsed to perfection. We commit to completing the project on schedule and delivering quality that exceeds your company's expectations. Then, as if the universe wanted to shatter this perfect moment, my phone vibrated violently in my breast pocket. I meant to ignore it. I really did. Not a single personal interruption had ever derailed one of my deals. But when I saw the name on the screen, my chest constricted, my heartbeat jumped, and the world fell into slow motion. Piper, my 12-year-old daughter. The light of my life. The one person I would sacrifice everything for. The one smile that could make all the stress, all the pressure, all the chaos worth it. I raised a hand, my voice trembling unexpectedly as I muttered an apology. Please excuse me for 1 minute. I have to take this call. The conference room door closed behind me, and for a moment I felt a chilling sense of inevitability. I pressed the phone to my ear and her small, trembling voice filtered through the howling wind. Daddy, I got kicked out. Grandma's house. I'm at the bus stop. I'm so cold. The words hit me like ice water. My knees went weak. Every achievement, every contract, every million-dollar deal evaporated into insignificance. In that instant, nothing mattered but her. I barely managed to whisper, "Wait for me, baby. Daddy's coming." Don't be scared. I left the conference room without waiting for reactions. Mr. Thompson, the lead partner, looked pale. Lawyers gaped. My staff froze mid-motion. I didn't care. I bolted for the elevator, my mind singularly focused. Piper was out there in a storm that could kill, in temperatures below zero, and I had to reach her. The parking garage was a frozen wasteland of concrete and echoing emptiness. My black Ford F-150 roared to life, tires skidding slightly on the ice as I tore down the ramps. GPS said 38 minutes to the bus stop near the Hall neighborhood. I did it in 24. I lost count of red lights, ignored every rule, cared about nothing but my daughter's safety. Finally, I screeched to a halt, headlights slicing through a swirling snowstorm, and there she was, Piper, sitting on a dilapidated wooden bench, clutching a crumpled wet gift box. Her thin sneakers were soaked, feet purple, hair tangled, face ghostly white, lips tinged blue. Her tiny body shivered violently with every gust of wind. I leapt from the truck, coat flung open, ignoring the biting cold. "Piper!" I shouted, dropping to my knees, wrapping her in my thick coat. She buried her face against me and sobbed, shaking uncontrollably. "Daddy, I'm so cold." "I thought you wouldn't come." Her voice broke me. Every rational thought fled. I hugged her tighter, whispering over and over, "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I've got you." Her little hands were like ice in mine, but I held on, stroking her hair, trying to infuse warmth into her frozen limbs with nothing but sheer panic and love. Then I saw the gift. The handmade music box she had worked on in secret, gluing pieces, painting every tiny detail, hoping her grandmother would be proud. It was ruined, soaked and torn like a symbol of the rejection she had faced. Rage and sorrow boiled inside me. How could a family be so cruel? How could anyone treat her this way? But there was no time for anger. She pressed closer, shivering against me. "Daddy, I'm hungry. I'm scared. I thought you'd left me." I kissed her wet hair, whispering, "I'll never let anyone hurt you like this again. I promise." The truck heater roared to life, warmth slowly spreading, but the terror in her eyes lingered. Outside, the snow kept falling, relentless and unfeeling. Inside, all that mattered was my little girl, trembling in my arms, and the unspoken vow that nothing, no family, no contract, no obstacle would ever separate us like that again. That Christmas Eve, I lost $100 million contract, but I had saved my daughter. And in that moment, there was no other victory that mattered. Before I continue, from which place are you watching this story right now? Please subscribe and like the video for motivation. I didn't pause. I couldn't. The moment Piper was secured in the truck, my mind raced with the sheer injustice of what had happened. Her tiny, shivering body pressed against mine. Her eyes wide with fear and hurt. I couldn't let this go. Not tonight. Not ever. The drive back was a blur. Snow fell in sheets blurring the road, headlights illuminating the endless white. I gritted my teeth, gripping the steering wheel so hard it ached. My daughter's soft sobs filled the cab, a heartbreaking counterpoint to the storm outside. Each tear she shed was a spike through my chest. I could feel her little heartbeat trembling in my arms. By the time we arrived home, my blood was boiling. Jonas Fowler, CEO, problem solver, man who could build skyscrapers and negotiate billion-dollar deals, had never felt this powerless. And yet now I had the power to confront the people who had dared to hurt her. The door opened, and the house smelled faintly of pine and cinnamon, the remnants of holiday cheer mocking the storm we had just survived. Piper's new stepmother, Rachel, and her family were gathered in the living room. They froze when they saw me. Snow plastered to my hair and coat. Piper cradled in my arms. Jonas, Rachel's voice faltered. Her eyes darted to Piper, then quickly away, like a guilty child caught in a lie. I didn't speak at first. I just looked at them, really looked. The anger in my chest was a living thing, hot and fierce but controlled. I lowered Piper gently to the couch, brushing her damp hair from her face. "Is this funny to you?" I finally asked, my voice quiet but lethal. Her family shifted uncomfortably. We didn't have room," Rachel said weakly. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" I echoed, incredulous. "You left a 12-year-old girl in the freezing cold with nothing but a soaked box she made for the woman who was supposed to love her." Piper's small voice quavered. "They said I wasn't real, that I don't belong." The words hit me harder than the cold outside. I clenched my fists, but I didn't yell, not yet. I wanted them to feel the weight of what they'd done. I wanted them to understand the fear, the betrayal, the heartbreak. Rachel tried to interject. "Jonas, we didn't—" "No," I cut her off, my voice rising, calm but terrifying. "You didn't care. You didn't think. You left her out there alone, cold, scared. And you call that Christmas?" The room was silent, except for the sound of the wind
howling outside and Piper's small sniffles.
I stepped closer, every step measured, deliberate. I have spent my life trying to be the good son-in-law, the patient, polite, understanding husband, but this is where your cruelty ends. Her parents, once confident and smug, now looked as though the floor had dropped from beneath them. I could see the fear creeping in, the same fear I had felt when my daughter was alone in the storm. Piper clung to my leg. I bent down, whispering in her ear, "You're safe now, baby. You're never going to be alone like that again." Rachel's father opened his mouth, but no words came. I didn't need them to. My eyes burning with fury and pain. Said enough. I turned back to Piper, lifting her gently into my arms again. "We're leaving," I said simply. "And if anyone thinks for 1 second that they can treat my daughter this way again, they'll regret it for the rest of their lives." I could feel their humiliation, their fear. It wasn't about punishment. It was about principle. Piper deserved love, warmth, and safety, not rejection from the people who were supposed to care for her. That night, I carried Piper to our home office, lit a fire in the hearth, and let her curl up under a blanket. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside me. Rage, protectiveness, helplessness, but inside those walls she was safe. I had won her back. I had made my vow clear. No one would ever harm her again. And as she drifted into a restless sleep, clutching the ruined music box like a talisman of hope, I sat in the flickering firelight, staring at the snow falling outside, and silently promised myself that nothing, not money, not career, not anyone, would ever come between me and Piper again. That Christmas Eve had already changed me. It wasn't just about saving my daughter from a freezing bus stop. It was about reclaiming our bond, standing up to cruelty, and proving that some things, family, love, protection, were far more valuable than any contract or business deal. The next hours passed in a blur, but the memory of Piper curled in my arms, shivering in the snow, stayed burned into my mind. I couldn't let this go, not just because of what they'd done, but because of the message it sent. That her life, her safety, her dignity was secondary to anyone else's selfishness. I paced the living room, snow boots leaving wet prints across the floor. Piper had finally drifted into a fitful sleep under a thick blanket. The ruined music box clasped tightly in her hands like a fragile treasure. Every time I looked at it, my heart clenched. Months of work, hope, and innocence destroyed. And yet, in her small hands, it became a symbol of resilience. I made a decision that night. Jonas Fowler, CEO, father, protector. Someone who had never tolerated weakness or injustice was going to set things straight. I picked up my phone, scrolling through names I hadn't dialed in years. Lawyers, contacts, people who owed me favors. This wasn't about revenge. This was about ensuring that no one would ever dare harm Piper again. Not physically, not emotionally, not psychologically. Then came the call from Rachel. "Jonas, please." I know it was wrong. I cut her off. Calm, icy. "You left a 12-year-old girl in sub-zero temperatures alone with nothing. Explain to me how that is acceptable." She stumbled over her words. I let her try, let her flail. I didn't need her excuses. She had already shown her hand. That night, I realized some people don't learn until consequences hit them hard. I walked to the window, looking out at the snow-draped streets. A quiet fury settled over me, steady, unstoppable. Piper's tears had melted into my memory, and with each passing second, that memory hardened into resolve. I would never allow anyone to treat her as disposable. I would make it clear in a way they would never forget that she was loved, she was safe, and I would protect her at all costs. Morning came, pale and icy, and with it a sense of urgency. I made Piper breakfast, warm and nourishing, letting her recover physically, while I prepared mentally for the confrontation to come. The house felt too small for the storm of emotion inside me, but it was ours for now. I wanted to make every corner of it a sanctuary for her, a place where she could feel safe and cherished. By mid-morning, I was ready. I gathered the music box, Piper's school backpack, and a few essentials. The snow had settled, but left the world outside glittering, deceptive in its calm. I called Rachel's family once more. "We're coming over," I said, my voice carrying a quiet authority that left no room for argument. "And this ends today." The drive to her house was silent except for Piper's occasional sniffles. I felt her small hand slip into mine. "Daddy, will they be mad?" she asked softly. I looked at her, eyes steady. "They will feel the weight of what they did," I said honestly. "But they won't ever hurt you again. Not while I'm around. You are my world, Piper, and no one gets to take that from us." When we arrived, the scene was almost cinematic. Her family, still basking in their smug sense of control, froze when the truck door opened. Piper stepped out, small but unbroken, clutching the soaked, patched-up music box. I followed behind, hands in my pockets, calm and deliberate. I could feel their discomfort before I even spoke. Jonas Fowler doesn't raise his voice when he's in control. He doesn't need to. The air carries the weight of his authority, his anger, and his love. "Do you understand what you did?" I asked, voice low, cutting, deliberate. They didn't answer. I let the silence stretch, heavy and unbearable. "You left her to freeze in the snow. You humiliated her. You treated her like she didn't matter. And that ends today." Piper looked up at me, her small eyes shining with tentative hope. I knelt beside her, letting her lean against me. "You are not their property, their toy, or their experiment. You are mine, and I will protect you with everything I have." The family shifted, faces pale, guilt mixing with fear. They had never seen me like this. They had never understood that love could be stronger than fear, stronger than arrogance, stronger than money, stronger than anything they could ever command. I stayed there, standing firm until the message was clear. Piper would never be abandoned again. And anyone who tried to challenge that would find that I was not just a man of wealth and power, but a man of unwavering resolve, a father whose love burned brighter than any storm. Outside, the air inside Rachel's house was tense enough to cut with a knife. Every step I took was deliberate, measured, a silent warning that I was not here to negotiate politely. Piper stayed close to my side, clutching her music box like a shield. She had been through enough, and I was determined that the next moments would define the line between fear and safety, cruelty and protection. Rachel's parents had clearly discussed what to say, but the words came out weak and hesitant. The confidence of the previous night completely evaporated. Jonas. We didn't mean... I raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. You didn't mean what? I asked, my voice low, controlled and sharp. You didn't mean to leave a 12-year-old girl alone in freezing snow? You didn't mean to humiliate her in front of strangers? You didn't mean to make her feel like she wasn't wanted? No answer, only guilty eyes and stammering attempts at excuses. I let the silence linger. Heavy, suffocating. Piper's small hand found mine again, squeezing tightly. I could feel the tension in her tiny body, the residual fear from the night before. I knelt down, meeting her gaze. Do you see, baby? You are safe now. That ends tonight. Then I stood and faced them fully. Every word was deliberate, every movement carrying authority. I want you to understand something clearly. Piper is not a guest, not a charity case, and certainly not someone you can discard when it's inconvenient. She is my daughter, my blood, my life, my responsibility, and anyone who ever tries to harm her, physically, emotionally, or mentally, will face me, and I will not be merciful. Rachel's father swallowed hard. Rachel herself looked stricken, cornered. I saw the faint quiver of fear in their eyes, the realization that they had underestimated what it meant to provoke a father's love. You may think this is just a spat over a gift, over a visit, over a tradition, I continued, voice rising with quiet intensity. But it is about respect. Respect for family, respect for love, respect for decency. And tonight I am making it clear that you have none of it. Not in my house. Not near my daughter. Not ever. I reached for Piper and held her close. Do you understand, baby? I asked softly. She nodded, eyes wide but steady. For the first time since the bus stop, I saw a spark of courage in her small face, a glimmer of hope. Then, with controlled precision, I removed the ruined music box from her hands. You worked so hard on this, I said, holding it gently. And they couldn't see its value, but I do, and I will make sure the world sees it too. Rachel gasped, but I ignored her. I had no intention of letting their judgment or indifference dictate the worth of my daughter's efforts. I turned back to Piper. We're leaving. And from now on, no one will ever treat you like you're disposable. You understand? She nodded again, this time with a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. My chest ached with emotion, pride, relief, and a lingering fury all wrapped into one. I picked her up, careful to shield her from the lingering atmosphere of hostility, and we walked to the door. I paused for a final look back at them, letting the weight of the moment sink in. This is your chance, I said, voice calm but deadly serious. Treat her with kindness, respect her, or remember this day forever, as the day you learned that I will protect my daughter at all costs. Snow had begun to fall again outside, soft and silent, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions we had just endured inside. I carried Piper to the truck, doors shutting behind us with a quiet finality. The engine roared to life, and as we drove away, I felt a deep sense of relief mixed with simmering anger. That night, the storm wasn't just outside. It had been inside us, in the house, in the hearts of those who had thought cruelty could be justified. And as the city lights faded behind us, I knew something had changed forever. Piper curled against me, still trembling slightly but safe. And I, Jonas, had made a promise that would never be broken. No one would ever hurt my daughter again. Not in my presence, not in my world. Not ever. For the first time since that dreadful call, I felt a measure of peace. But the memory of the snow, the terror in her eyes, and the cold injustice of what had happened would stay with me forever, a constant reminder that some battles are worth more than $100 million contract. The drive home was quiet, but the silence was heavy with emotion. Piper rested against my chest, her small arms wrapped around me as if letting go would mean losing the warmth and safety I provided. Her shivering had finally eased, but I could still feel the lingering tremors of fear from the night before. Every heartbeat reminded me of how close we had come to disaster, how easily innocence could be shattered by cruelty and neglect. When we arrived at our home, I didn't wait to put her down. I carried her inside, past the familiar walls that suddenly felt like a fortress, protecting her from the outside world. the snow continued to fall in thick layers, blanketing the city in deceptive calm. But inside, the storm of my own fury was far from over. I set Piper on the couch, handed her a warm cup of cocoa, and watched as the pink color slowly returned to her cheeks. "You're safe now, baby," I said softly. "I'm never letting anyone hurt you like that again." She looked at me, eyes wide, still trusting but still uncertain. "Daddy, are they angry at you?" I shook my head, smiling gently. "No, they're scared, and that's what they should be." I made a decision in that moment. Protection wasn't just about comfort or warmth. It was about setting boundaries, about making it unmistakably clear that anyone who tried to harm her, emotionally or physically, would face consequences they couldn't ignore. I called my office and instructed my assistant to clear the next 2 days of meetings. There would be no distractions. No contracts, no negotiations. My focus would be on Piper, on restoring her sense of safety and joy, and on ensuring that her stepfamily understood their place. Later, I sat with her at the kitchen table, helping her carefully dry and mend the ruined music box. Each piece of glued wood, each hand-painted snowflake, became a symbol of resilience, of determination, and of the love I would always protect. We laughed softly at the clumsier repairs, and for the first time in what felt like hours, I saw her smile, a fragile thing, but real. Evening came, and I knew it was time. Jonas Fowler wasn't a man who backed down from challenges, and protecting Piper wasn't just a private matter, it was a statement. I sent a message to Rachel's family. "We will be visiting tomorrow. Come prepared to apologize and make things right. Piper will never be treated like this again, and I will make sure you understand that." She didn't sleep that night. Not fully. Her little fingers clutched the music box, and I held her until her breathing steadied. Every time the wind rattled the windows, I reassured her. "It's okay, baby. Daddy's here. Nothing will ever hurt you like that again." As I lay awake in the quiet house, staring at the ceiling, I thought of the bus stop, the icy wind, and the helpless fear in her eyes. I made a promise to myself and to her. This family, these people who had thought cruelty was acceptable, would never again have the power to make her feel unwanted or unsafe. I had already taken the first step, but tomorrow would be the reckoning, the moment when words and presence carried the weight of justice. That night, Jonas Fowler realized something fundamental. Protecting his daughter wasn't just about rescuing her from a snowstorm. It was about teaching the world that love, courage, and determination would always outweigh neglect, cruelty, or fear. And Piper, my little girl, would never have to face that cold alone. Again, the next morning, the world outside was a dazzling white, snowflakes glittering like crystals under the weak winter sun. The streets were quiet, almost serene, but inside me a storm raged. Jonas Fowler doesn't back down from injustice. And this was more than injustice. It was an attack on my daughter's safety, dignity, and trust. Today the world would understand that. I dressed deliberately in my black coat, ensuring I projected authority without even trying. Piper, small but brave, clutched the patched-up music box like a talisman. She had slept fitfully, haunted by memories of the bus stop, the cold and the cruelty she had faced. But today she would see that courage and love could triumph. The drive to Rachel's family home was tense. Piper leaned against me, quiet but alert. I could feel her small hand press against mine, hesitant but trusting. "Daddy, will they be ready?" she asked softly. I looked down at her and smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. "They will learn today, baby. They will understand exactly what it means to hurt someone you claim to love and why that is never acceptable." When we arrived, the house looked deceptively calm, a stark contrast to the storm of confrontation I intended to bring inside. I opened the door, stepping in with Piper close to my side. Every eye turned toward us immediately, and I could see panic ripple through Rachel's family. The confident, smug expressions from before had vanished, replaced by something far more telling. Fear. I didn't waste words. Jonas Fowler isn't a man who needs theatrics. His presence alone communicates authority and resolve. "You left her in the snow," I said simply, my voice steady, slicing through the tension like a blade. "Do you understand the gravity of what that means?" They shifted uncomfortably. Rachel's mother tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "No words. No excuses. You will listen and you will understand. Piper is not disposable. She is my daughter. She is my responsibility. And anyone who tries to harm her emotionally or physically will face consequences. Piper's eyes met mine, and I gave her a slight nod. She understood. She knew that this wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. She stood a little taller, her small frame showing the strength I had instilled in her. I walked to the center of the room, letting my gaze sweep over the entire family. You may think a 12-year-old's fear, tears, or heartache is trivial. But you were wrong. She trusted you. She believed you would care. And you failed. That ends today. Then I did something deliberate. I placed the music box on the table in front of them. This is her effort, her love, her hope. And you ruined it. But I fixed it, and I will protect every part of her life from now on. Consider this a lesson. Rachel's father swallowed hard. Rachel herself looked trapped, unable to meet my eyes. I let the silence stretch, suffocating and heavy until it was unbearable. Then I spoke again, soft but lethal. You will never treat her this way again. Not in my presence. Not in my world. And if you even try, my voice trailed, leaving the threat hanging like winter frost in the room. The room remained silent. They understood now. The weight of my love, my fury, my unwavering commitment. No one could ever doubt my resolve. Piper's step-family had learned something they would not forget. Jonas Fowler protects his daughter at all costs. I turned to Piper, lifting her gently into my arms. Come on, baby. We're leaving. You're safe now, forever. The drive home was different this time. Quiet, yes, but filled with a profound sense of justice. Piper leaned against me, finally relaxed, her trust fully restored. I held her close, feeling the warmth of her small body against mine. The tangible proof that love could overcome fear, cruelty, and neglect that night. Back at our home, I watched her sleep, the snow still falling outside, and felt a deep sense of completion. The storm had ended, not just the blizzard, but the storm of cruelty and injustice that had threatened her. Jonas Fowler had made sure of it. And as I sat there, I realized something powerful. A father's love isn't just fierce, it's unstoppable, unyielding, and eternally protective. From that day forward, no one would ever threaten her peace again. No contract, no family, no circumstance could ever take that from us. The house was quiet when we returned. The snow had stopped falling, leaving the world outside sparkling and pristine, a stark contrast to the chaos of the past 24 hours. Inside, however, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Jonas Fowler, CEO, problem solver, protector, father had survived the storm, and so had Piper. I set her down gently, watching her small frame move across the room. Her eyes were bright again, cheeks warm, and her tiny fingers carefully held the repaired music box. She placed it on the mantel, her way of reclaiming something that had once been stolen from her. "Daddy," she whispered, looking up at me with a fragile smile. "Thank you. For everything." I crouched down, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. "No, baby. Thank you. You were so brave, so strong. You showed me that even when the world is cold and cruel, your heart can stay warm, and I promise nothing will ever hurt you like that again." For a moment, we sat together in the quiet room, letting the stillness and warmth wrap around us. I thought about the bus stop, the snowstorm, and the fear in her eyes, and I knew something had changed, not just for Piper, but for me. My priorities were clearer than ever. Family first, everything else second. No contract, no career triumph. No obligation would ever outweigh protecting the one person I loved most. Days passed, and Rachel's family never overstepped again. They had learned the hard way that cruelty and neglect carried consequences, especially when Jonas Fowler was involved. Piper smiled more freely, laughed again, and slowly let go of the fear that had gripped her small heart. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace sipping cocoa, Piper placed her head against my chest. "Daddy," she said softly, "can we make Christmas like this every year?" "Just us?" I smiled, kissing the top of her head. "Every year, baby, just us. Safe, happy, and together. Always together." The music box sat proudly on the mantel, its delicate snowflakes shining under the firelight. It was more than a gift now, it was a symbol of resilience, love, and victory over cruelty. Every scratch. And Patch told the story of a little girl who refused to be broken and a father who refused to let her suffer that Christmas Eve. I had lost a $100 million contract. I had lost time, calm, and a sense of professional control. But what I gained was far greater. My daughter's trust, her safety, and the unshakable bond between us. Nothing in the world could ever take that away. As the night deepened, I looked at Piper sleeping peacefully under a thick blanket, her small hand still lightly touching the music box. I whispered softly, "I will always protect you." Piper, always. Outside, the world was silent, blanketed in white, calm and peaceful, but inside our hearts were full. We had survived the storm, both the one outside and the one inside, and had come out stronger, closer, unbreakable, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that no force, no family, no circumstance would ever take her from me again. This was our Christmas, our victory, our forever.